I have to actually manually put that I don't want to be the only one that sees this, which is really weird. Hi, I think we're live. All right, my name is not showing up yet for some reason. Let's see. There we go. Awesome. I am checking out comments here and saying hi while we get situated. And I'm changing the setting so everyone can actually watch this and it's not just me watching it. I think it should be live. Facebook has changed my settings to every single post I have to put, oh, look, hi, someone else is here. To me only. I'm my only viewer unless I manually fix it. But so, my name is Dr. Sharnael Wolverton-Sehon. I'm with Swiftfire True TV, and I'm super, super excited. I've been waiting for a few weeks now to have a very special guest here tonight, Roger Richards, who I've been following his work for a few years now, Roger. And so I'm like, I reached out and I was like, oh my God, he answered. I was just like fangirl all of a sudden. I was like, I can't believe it. And then you agreed to do the interview. Thank you so much for your time. I know how busy you are, and this is just really amazing. Awesome.
Well, thank you for just reaching out and connecting. All the grassroots support that's come from my work and the work of, many others in our collective and the films we've done only happened because of people like you and other people that, see this work and take it out there, talk about it, use it for conversation points. So I appreciate you reaching out. Thank you.
Yes, sir. So I actually first was introduced to your work with Above Majestic several years back. And for those of you who have not seen that video, that movie, documentary, that would be a good staple for some basics and a lot of different foundations of some things that maybe you weren't aware of. And that's been a movie that if people are like, what's going on? I don't understand, or I have questions about this, that's been the video that I've just kind of been like, start here. Everyone just hit that one and watch that first, and then people go with more questions from there. But I'm curious because I'm sure that wasn't your first documentary.
Like, it was.
Was it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I was just going to say, for everyone who's maybe not familiar with that or with what you're doing, and then we'll definitely get into this last piece of art that you've done. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, how you got here to this point, and even in this industry.
It's a long, crazy story. Just like everybody else, I think, that's found themselves on the precipice of the truth community right now and the changes. All of us have had, crazy experiences that have brought us to different types of information that have pulled us out of the mainstream, out of the matrix, that have taken us on our own little journeys to follow our own maps and kind of unlock our own stories. And, I think that's one thing that's amazing about, this community in general, is that people are on searches for themselves individually here. It's highly personal, these kind of awakening journeys that people go through. And, like many of them, I was a person that had, experiences that I couldn't quite understand or explain, my whole life. And they became mounting. And, at a certain point in your kind of intellectual maturity and adulthood and, just whatever the maturation of time, you decide to look at these things. And, it's different for a lot of people. Some people will never look at these things. Some people will keep them, locked up for their entire lives, and they're ashamed of them, scared of them, all of that type of stuff. But for the ones that do kind of go and they start digging and they start opening that up, it's a whole different journey from the standpoint of really trying to understand yourself outside of the matrix that you're conditioned in. And that's where I started. And, I had a lot of interesting, connections. I started working with a great hypnotherapist. Her name is Barbara Lamb. If anybody's,
Oh my
yeah,
God.
yeah, Barbara's
Yes.
great. Yeah, she's an amazing, amazing woman who's done, regression therapy, for particularly this type of stuff for, decades, 2, 3, almost decades now. And my kind of journey started with cracking open some of the fragmented kind of memories that I had that just didn't make sense, and that kind of opened up my journey into this whole world of, information. I've always followed this stuff, been interested in, this stuff from afar. Always had like an inkling of knowing about these things and keeping a pulse on it. But really, my journey to dive into understanding this stuff, began with my own commitment to understanding my, what's happened to me and the experiences I can't explain. And that kind of started with Max Spears. I know that a lot of people are familiar with Max, and if you're not, you should check out the information that he put out there. I was in contact with Max about coming
Oh
over.
my God, I did not know this. I had
Yeah,
no idea.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, go
No
ahead.
worries.
I'm
No
gonna
worries.
like lose my stuff right now. Okay, go ahead.
So Max and I were talking early on. I believe it was 2016, if I remember right, in 2016, about him coming over to the States and being a part of a film, me taking his testimony. And I finally got an agreement from him to do that. And that was kind of the start of this journey. And, 5 days later, he died. And it was one of those moments where it really kind of showed me, okay, there's definitely a lot more to this than, what seems going on. And that kind of opened up more, and looking into, a lot of the information around secret projects and, things like MK Ultra and, all the things, the work and information of Kathy O'Brien was pivotal to me to open up and understand early on. And I started working with, people in the community and doing the best I could to essentially support, full disclosure and the idea of people, focusing on an inward and outward journey. It reflected essentially my anarchist beliefs and morals around personal sovereignty and what it means to, adopt the whole collective as one, and vice versa, and all of those things. And so I just kind of started getting into exploring that more. I was able to connect with, wonderful people like William Tompkins. I was able to spend time with William Tompkins, and took some incredible interviews with him early on. And working with other people and finding amazing teams within this community, finding incredible like soul family within this community, putting on all different types of events, and just kind of working as a creative. I've always been a creative my entire life. It's how I've expressed and interpreted this world, whether it was from, music or art or, poetry, now filmmaking. This is the avenue that I've chosen to kind of be a conduit for and pull whatever this experience is out of the ethers through is through art and whatnot. So I guess in a nutshell, I don't want to ramble too long, but that's, kind of essentially how I got here and started making these films.
What the vehicle of film, like what brought you to that point? Like
I had always been obsessed with a camera. I took a camera with me wherever I was when I was younger. And most of those like videos that I took were, kind of the equivalent of like, MTV Jackass videos with my friends. Lots of partying, lots of crazy, just like subculture events. I toured and played in just kind of like an underground subculture band in the Bay Area a lot, and Northern California. And so my interest of like documenting experiences like started, really early on. And I would kill to have that footage now these days. I think, oh God, I'd love to go back and make something out of that. It's long, long gone. Lived a very kind of rough lifestyle through my younger years to my older years. But that's I've always had an interest in film. I started then getting more involved in the bands that I was playing in. We would do multimedia collages and visual collages that would play behind us, and that kind of started getting me into video editing and understanding how to edit. And then from there, just kind of taking it on my own as another avenue to create and learn as you go.
awesome. Yeah, well, what's so great about your documentary, your documentary, why am I saying this? Your movies,
Hmm.
your docs. A lot of them that I've seen are not very well done.
Hmm.
They
Exactly.
look just very cheap and
Yes.
thrown together, and just
Totally.
kind of like, who did this? Like some 1970s kind of,
Hmm.
but yours is just colorful and very, I don't know, kind of MTV. Like, I don't know how to even, I don't know if there's like a criteria or some theme or what you'd even call it in the category, but that's what caught my eye, is just the exquisite detail to every single thing that you did. And I'm sure you have a great team working with you as well.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so tell us about your newest and latest project that just launched in November. Was it the 11th that it came
Correct. Yeah.
out?
Hmm.
Which the timing, I mean, I was blown away. I have to be honest. I mean, I could go on and on. I watched it 4 times. For those of you who haven't, you absolutely should. You can go to Venmo and watch it. But Kathy O'Brien, Joseph Flynn, John D'Souza, Robert Steele, who I've had on several times. Robin Gritz was new to me, but wow, crazy awesome. And Sean Stone is a narrator. I've had him on a few times too, and he's got his own bag of rabbit hole ideas, and directs and writes, and he's just an amazing being too. Just the amount of the people that you have in the quote cast are absolute. I mean, Kathy O'Brien has not been public since her husband passed, and I mean, I was just so surprised to even see her when it came out. I mean, I was like, are you even kidding me that she would come out and talk and share what she did? I don't know. I've heard a lot of her stuff. I've watched a lot of her stuff, and she said things that I've not even heard her talk about. I mean, she really disclosed some stuff. You had pictures, you had footage. I really enjoyed Joseph Flynn, just the backstory of him growing up, and for the general. I mean, he referred to his own brother as the general, which I was like, that would be kind of, but technically, yeah. And just the harassment that the family went through, and really what I liked is you basically took, and for those of you who don't know, the whole movie is about the 3-letter organizations and the corruption behind it. And he basically took someone from all the different ones and let them share their version of what they went through. And then they're probably a representation of who knows how many people. But John D'Souza, Robert with CIA, John with FBI, Robin did FBI and CIA. I mean, who does both? I mean, I was just like, oh wow, this chick is like fierce, to do. And she worked a lot with General Flynn. I mean, she's firsthand works with him. And most of these people either stepped down and walked away, which I love how Robert said it, is they could no longer serve their country in the capacity where they're supposed to be serving their country. So they had to step down in order to actually serve the country, which is so ironic. But I'd love to hear what was the genesis of even the idea or putting this together? Tell us your side.
So I work with a great team, Steve Luchescu, who's like an old school Hollywood veteran. If you've seen, any action flick in the last 20, 30 years, there's probably a pretty good chance that Steve had, his fingers touching on it in some way or another. He's an incredible creative, incredible, stunt director. Him and I and, our collective, Adrian Youngblood, Adam Wahlberg, Renee Armenta, these are, people that have come to this mission because they saw what was cultivating, and what was cultivating was an opportunity to really invest your creativity and talent into sharing information, and really kind of getting that out there. When you were talking about kind of my style, the aesthetic that I have and I really enjoy is like subculture and counterculture communities. It's whether, it's the communities I was raised in around, music, art, film, all of that type of stuff. So it's deeply influenced just who I am as a creative. And, we essentially are working on a Q film right now, and we were in a shoot down in Arizona, actually set up to shoot with a gentleman named Austin Steinbart, and he was arrested in that morning before the shoot. And that spawned us to kind of utilize the film team that we had already set up in that moment to reach out and connect with John D'Souza, who is locally there in Arizona. And we did an amazing interview with John D'Souza, and that's what started this whole film off. It's amazing to kind of just see the genesis of it now and talking about it now, and how, it was, kind of like brought up in these unique situations, and just it kind of built itself. And so from John put us in touch with Robin Gritz. John and Robin knew each other. I believe they were both at the Phoenix field office, if I'm correct, or something to that extent. But they had known each other. And, from there, Robert David Steele got involved. Robin reached out to, Joe Flynn. Joe got involved. David reached out to Kathy. It was, a communal effort to really kind of bring a message together that was timely in this moment. I think one of the things about the film that came together for me as I was putting it together, a big part of these journeys as a filmmaker is tying these dots together for yourself as you're on the cutting room floor and, putting the picture together and putting 1,000 pieces together into a film. And, one of the things that came through for me is really understanding the reach that these intelligence agencies have, and how they have been basically the strong arm of the deep state, cabal, Illuminati, 1%, whatever you want to call it. But these people have been cultivating our reality, like, for real, all across the world. And this goes into, nations being, born and killed. This goes into coups. This goes into assassinations. This goes into illegal government projects like COINTELPRO, MK Ultra. It goes into the suggestion of, false flag events through things like Northwoods, that were suggested there. It goes into looking at the corruption within the mainstream media and their ties to the intelligence agencies through things like Operation Mockingbird.
Yep,
exactly. These are all public things. These are not conspiracy theories from the standpoint of like, this is wackadoo stuff. This is stuff that's public that anybody who takes, a few minutes time of research can put together. And then what started coming out of the stories of all of these people really started putting up a mosaic, and, from the standpoint of starting with, Kathy O'Brien within the storyline, Kathy is a victim of the MK Ultra program, and she's been speaking out about it for, a very, very long time. And her husband, Mark Phillips, who was deeply close to the intelligence agencies in that world there, helped her, get out of those experiences and actually help her heal. But it was key to kind of laying the foundation for really showing the extent of, an individual that went through it and can speak on it now, but really what her experience represents fractally to all of us and what we're experiencing collectively. And when you start looking at the things that tie themselves together as far as false flags, as far as control of the propaganda and media, as far as infiltrating our revolutionary groups, as far as the assassinations and coups and that have happened, you start looking at American history, especially over the last 6 decades here, 60 years, and you start to see some trends, and you start to really wonder, how much are we being cultivated? Like, really look at the power that these intelligence agencies have. And now where it's come to the point where our information daily is harvested by artificial intelligence. What we share on social media, the food that, we eat, the products that we buy, our networks of the people we're connected to, our conversations, our keywords, the linguistics in the words that we use, our likes, our all of those things are developed into very, very sophisticated personality profiles on each of us. That's the reality of where things are at right now. And these tech giants that have access to this information, that are dealing in our information, that are then serving us up a reality based off of that, whether it's all of a sudden you've been talking about, fly fishing, and then naturally you get an ad for fly fishing. You haven't typed it, you haven't searched anything, but it's like, where's that stuff pulling from? It's pulling from the fact that our phones are constantly monitoring us, our locations, our habits, who we talk to, all of those things. And so when you put that bigger picture together and you look at the power that these intelligence agencies have at the hands of the royals and the elite, it really can paint a very clear picture that it's not about a partisan thing. It's not right left. The corruption and the systemic deep state roots go back very, very far, and they have been generational, and they have been cultivating to this moment in time here. I firmly believe that and see that, and that's why it's being pushed to the surface and exposed in this moment. But again, I'm talking for a long time. Sorry about that. But that's the film. That's my process with the film, what's happened, and what I understand about it.
Yeah, and you go into the JFK, you go into 9/11. I mean, the 1,000 Pieces title in itself comes from JFK actually saying that he wanted to rid all the corruption and bust it apart in 1,000 pieces. And it was interesting, when I saw the title, that's the first time I really looked at like the kill box, and I was like, wow, it's in a kill box. Like he is, that is all the symbols and signs of showing like the plan here of what this is about. But it's just amazing. And what I think, as much as there is the censorship and the lockdowns, and I guess I should be using code and whatever, are you seeing that people are waking up at all? I mean, what kind of feedback are you getting?
I definitely see that people are waking up. I mean, you look at the work that we've done collectively as just even a truther community over the last 4 years, and where we've pulled ourselves out of the dark, dingy corner of the fringes and have become such a force. We're the top thing they're suppressing right now. That's the truth. That's reality. They're having to stuff us down, trying to it's like trying to keep a basketball underwater, just like trying to force us down. But this is never ending, because it's innate within people to want to understand their reality, and when you can inspire somebody just with the single ember of something that it connects to them, that's unstoppable. That there's no, there's like that whole term of like, once you take the red pill, there's no turning back. But it's more than that. It's more that once you make the commitment to understanding your reality as opposed to having it served up to you, a whole nother experience opens up where you start participating in creating reality as opposed to just existing in it. And that experience is addicting. It is the true life of what we're available as human beings here, is to live and create, to be in a mirror of the creator, to be in a mirror of creation with each other. And so if you can inspire that within people to come and see those little bits within themselves, their own journey, like I said, everybody's got that little, mustard seed that starts their own, it's that scratch you can never itch, but it's always there. It's like the rotten tooth that you're kind of always probing with your tongue. You can't get rid of it. There's something freaking wrong here. And when people get into that state of exploring that for themselves, you start to understand way more than the information. You start to really interact and participate with the collective consciousness that is in this great awakening experience right now. There's nothing stopping this. There's no way it can stop. It is on a colossal eruption and blooming that that nothing can hold back right now. And so when you ask me, are we in that state? I think without a doubt. And a big part of that is the hard wake up calls, which is what's going on with a lot of people right now, from the standpoint of politics and their investments into the system and, their belief systems and all of that, from religion to science to history. This is all now being looked at from the standpoint of the elite that were involved in culturing it, the elite that were involved in serving it out to us, the elite that were involved in creating these systems for us to exist in, and the elite that are essentially living off of us, from that. And so, that experience of awakening right now, the Great Awakening, the whole idea of just kind of opening your eyes to the broader truth is more just a place of stepping out of reality being served to you, and you participating with it, from your own sovereign perspective and your own interest and inspirations.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the creation piece because honestly, as a scientist, and I'm kind of a geek with all this kind of stuff of the law of just us and our creation, our technology, our DNA, that we have the capacity to do all of these amazing things, including creating. And with the mockingbird scenario, if they can connect us or anchor us to whatever it is, whether it's social media, movies, news, whatever, and that low vibration, which is always through beta waves, the lowest, high, fight or flight type scenario, and the most easiest to brainwash, by the way. All these brainwash techniques of, first we had the isolation, and then we got some censorship, and we've always had this disinformation, whether through the school system, the movies, music, everything's been basically invaded. And I think when the COVID thing, well, I didn't want to say that. I think when the C word came out, and the lockdowns came in, it started out, hey, we're going to do this for 2 weeks. No one said up front, this is going to be 3 or 4 years, because everyone would have been like, no way. But when they just said, oh, it's just for a little, it's like that frog, in the boiling, you don't throw it in the boiling water, you just turn it up slightly and people don't even realize what's going on. And that's what's been going on with censorship. That's been going on with movies and TV and news. And it's been slowly, just shifting this entire thing to move. But what I don't think they anticipated is the wake up. I don't know if they really anticipated that this lockdown could actually be a catalyst for people diving in and looking and like, we're bored, we're just gonna whatever, and checking into why and what and who, and really doing some research. And I think I know you're right. Years ago when I started having memories, I was a part of some stuff growing up too, and trying to piece, where does this even fit with these flashes of things that I'm seeing. It did not make sense in the world that I was in, even at 10, 20, 30 years of age. It's like, okay. But then I had to get to the point where it's like, okay, they're the same images all the time. This is not just my imagination. Before it was kind of like, this is just a terrible thought. Like, put that over there. Why am I thinking this about something that could have happened to me? No. And so I think a lot of people, stuff is coming up. It's forcing memories up. Things are seeping through. People are seeing people being triggered by some of the things. I think there's been like some activations even, whether it's in the ether or I really don't know. But it seems to be building. And like you said, authenticity and truth is addictive. Like, we all have that in our DNA. To be truth, we are truth, and to find truth amplifies. And you're right, it can't be stopped. David Rodriguez, who I know you're he said something the other day, and he was like, it's like a dam, with the little boy and the finger, and it's like you can hold it for a little while, but then everything starts cracking.
Yeah.
And eventually it's going to come down,
Yeah.
But do you think that this is going to lead to actual full disclosure? Do you think this is where we're going? Because there's been memes and this is funny and the Space Force, but where do you think this is?
I think full disclosure is a really interesting term in itself, and the words that those carry, because it's like, yeah, you can use it in the context to full disclosure of what's been hidden from, as far as extraterrestrials, technology, all of those type things, the occult. But then when you look on it at a broader scale, full disclosure is happening within each one of us right now. There is a real choice to go inward and to disclose to yourself the reality to which you exist in, disclose to yourself how the the system, actually creates you, and what parts of you are actually created by the system, what are authentic within yourself. So it's a parallel journey. I think that it obviously is a fractal of what we are collectively, in mirror to who we are individually. We're all going through this full disclosure journey for ourselves in this moment, each day in this awakening experience. But collectively, yes, it's happening. And I look at it, I've used this metaphor before, like the murmuration of starlings or schools of fish. The collective consciousness, we feel each other, we thrive off of each other, we interact with each other. It's a very much like a psychedelic experience, in whole, that we're all participating in collective consciousness. And so, like, as far as like what do I think is going to happen or where are we going, I think whatever we choose will happen, because ultimately our superposition is determined by what we choose to witness. The whole idea of, I don't know if you're familiar with the idea of like Schrodinger's cat and, some of the, quantum kind of theory analogies and, perspectives, but what we choose to witness is what manifests in real for you now. And the superposition locks in based off of your perception, awareness, and consciousness. At least that's my understanding of it, and where I'm at with it now. And so what we choose is really like, people don't understand the power that they have on an individual level of what they choose every day, and how that echoes into the eternal experience of this consciousness that we create, collectively here. And so, I, based off of what I see archetypally right now, kind of playing out, is this is the Great Awakening archetype. This is the unveiling. This is the time where what's once was hidden is now kind of revealed. What was once, occulted is now, out there from that standpoint of understanding long-term information that has been a part of our collective experience for a long time and has been destroyed, whether it's been through suppressing indigenous communities, whether it's been through hiding antiquities and understanding of our past, whether it has to do with technologies that may have potentially come from our future. There are a lot of things right now that are playing into this greater understanding and awakening of what I feel is quantum consciousness or Christ consciousness in relationship to that, which is really understanding that you are entangled with everything, all things, and everyone, and that mirrors you directly. And when you can live and experience from that, and especially create from that, the world and your experience, it's just a very different lifestyle. It's a very different way of living, and it is far from the sterile experience that has been served up through the systems that we've been kind of locked in and given our consent to for a long time. And so I can only see that continuing to go. I think that 10 years from now, we're going to be looking back and seeing the complete perfection of this kind of quantum operation from collective consciousness, and how both the dark and the light played their role in that. To understand the darkness that we have in each other, there sure had to be somebody that took that on and lived that and embodied that archetype. That there sure had to be consciousness that inhabited those expressions, and it's the same from the light. And so when you're talking about like COVID right now, there are a lot of really interesting things that are coming out of it. One of them is the idea that, people are interacting through digital, communications. It's much more efficient from the standpoint of, even like a carbon imprint, whether you're driving to work or not, But the idea of understanding that our technology has now reached a place that could rapidly transform the way that we interact with each other, the way we collectively take the burden of each other on. These are things that are a part, I think, of this whole, experience. And so, in the end, wherever this goes, it's really, up to us in this experience. I have a hard time with the people that just kind of sit back and are like, watch the show, this is a movie. It's a movie, but you're cast in a pretty deep role yourself, and everyone is, and you've got to be able to kind of participate in that, because if you're thinking you're just going to sit back and watch the show and expect things to play out to the best of your expectations, you might have another experience coming for you. So these times are incredibly important for people to get involved right now, to understand that their rights against the technology that has been developed, the technology that's coming out publicly, how we can utilize those technologies to completely dismantle the systems that we have of government and rebuild them from the standpoint of contributionism, from the standpoint of, taking care of inalienable human rights, food, water, housing, healthcare, these things that, if they could be handled from a mass standpoint collectively, the ability of our collective creation together set forth against this foundation of something like that would be unstoppable. Our world and our experience would transform overnight in ways that you could probably never even imagine right now. But it's all available to us, and the only thing that's stopping us is us. So that's kind of my thoughts on it.
Yeah, and for those of you who might not be familiar with this whole, what he's going into this whole creation thing. So we have a biofield that's like 6 to 8 feet. The Earth has a biofield as well, the Schumann, and by the way, and I'll talk about that too. But the biofield and what's the code? There's code within this field, and the code comes from what we think about, what we talk about, and what we feel. This is the biggest generator of all the code. And then also the DNA signature that we all carry. So what we're incarnated in, what we've come in from, actually carries code. So this code, some people actually see it, colors, numbers, whatever. And they call it bio dual because it's two, both radiating out, but also magnifying back in. So there's a two-way thing. There was antenna going out, but also receiving and putting out. And what you focus on, you make room for, and what you where energy goes, energy flows, and you only get what you are. So if you're thinking about things, talking about things, feeling things, if you're in fear or whatever, guess what? You produce code. Like, let's say that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That code goes out into the field. It radiates out like the sun and sends a signal, and then also magnetizes back to you situations, people, what have you, that will reflect and magnify back more fear situations, more fear people, more opportunities to be in fear because you created that. And so how is that important in Mockingbird? How is that important in education? How is that in movies? How is that important in social media? Because as a collective, if our entire focus as a collective is in fear or whatever, they can actually, they first actually recorded the Schumann resonance measurements going crazy when what's his name, the Bronco guy, OJ, they had these generators all over the world. OJ has his day. He's on the highway and he's out there doing things. And guess what? All of TV all over is focused. I mean, this was a live thing that happened where everyone was just like straight on watching. I don't know. I don't know if you watched it. I watched it. Maybe you guys watched it. I remember being glued going, oh my God. And we were just going to sit back, like you said, and enjoy what was happening, what's going on, right? But they actually could measure, the Schumann actually shifted, and they were like, what's going on? Like, this is affecting everyone, right? Now, whether they knew that already or not, whatever, but it did affect the actual numbers, which is 7.83 on hertz on the world, and it shot up. It gave a spike. And they watched it again with Princess Diana when she got married. With her death, with 9/11, with all of these things that have happened, they've watched these spikes. Well, if that can happen with a big event, what do you think that the sea is doing? What do you think is going on with the world as a collective, as we are all focused on this, fear-based, high beta, fight or flight? And guess what? We are creative beings. We are immortal. We have high technology in the DNA. We can create, we can resurrect, we can heal, we can transport, we can bilocate. All the things that we're supposed to be doing may not be completely activated yet, but some people are doing it, and we're creating. So if they can get us to focus on something fearful, then they're using us to set up a whole scenario to create the world that they want us to. So people like you, I mean, this, I'm just explaining for some people who are like, what does he mean creating? Like, what is he talking about? We create, we co-create, we collectively create with source. And if we're not careful, we're going to create by default, accidentally, some pretty shitty stuff maybe, and if we don't engage, like you said, sit back and watch, guess what kind of code does that go out? Like apathy, I don't care. Like, what are what happens if we all got purposeful and used our creative powers, to imagination, to use, all of our technology to actually project something positive, even if it's make believe in us of what we choose for this world, and project that and talk about that and feel as if it already happened in love or in excitement. What if we all just focused on med beds already being declassed, or replicators, or being able to go to Mars in 30 seconds, or all the things that are really here, but just not really here, right? Like, we can do that. And so, someone said, if not now, when? Like, let's do it. So when he's talking about our abilities, there is a science to that. He's not just saying some really like, oh, you can create. Like, this is like legit, real science. And there's a science to miracles. There's a science to creating, and we can participate. And that's why people like you in the arts and all that you're doing to get these projections out. If people can look and see pictures of med beds, they can believe and be alive in med beds. It's like, what is it, the guy, the Indians who didn't see the sailing boats or whatever? Do you even know what I'm talking about? I'm trying to.
I do. Yeah, it's the whole idea where they didn't recognize advanced technology because they had never, perceived it, and so to them it didn't exist. From that standpoint, I understand the metaphor. Yeah.
Yeah, you can only conceive what you perceive, and if your perception isn't based on something, positive, and it's all in the tubes of high beta and fear, then what are we creating? And are we even participating? Do we even know that anything's happening? Or are we just, following, well, the government would always have our back, and doctors, well, some of us are still there, and it's just like, it's aggravating, but now I'm talking too much. But anyway.
I think I get exactly what you're trying to highlight and where you're going. And, Kathy O'Brien lays it out really clearly. What I believe you're kind of connecting on is the idea of mind sciences. And if you look at the Hitler-Himmler research, especially that Kathy's talking about, that was involved in MK Ultra, and that is actually a part of her book, PTSD Time to Heal, and the mind sciences that are explained to being able to fracture people's consciousness, to be able to pull them away from their authenticity, to be able to use trauma triggers to corral them and guide them. You look at those as the microcosm in a single woman's experience, like Kathy, who went through, the early iterations and applications of these things on, an individual level. And then you apply those same mind sciences to the masses and the technological advancements that, we have now. Those same things that, were being played out on Kathy as an individual are being played out on us in whole as a collective. And it's based off of mind sciences and the ability for these people to calculate the odds against you based off of your personality profiles and all of this electronic data they have right now is key to cultivating timelines and guiding timelines. Because when you can do that in mass, when you can basically be an MK Ultra, controller to a collective consciousness, you're building timelines, you're steering the timelines based off of that, because what they've harnessed through that experience is the ability to create and manifest what's real and hijack everyone's innate creative abilities for the use of their agendas. And that's where we give consent and participation to a lot. It's a fine line for me of unknowing consent versus just kind of giving consent in general, but it's still a conversation that I like to explore. But the whole idea around the mind sciences and how real that works on a small level, but how it can be cascaded out into a fractal larger collective consciousness is a big part of what I understood in this film and got to see in whole. And you said it, the artists we're all artists. We all mirror fractally the creator. We are the creator. We're here to create. That's what we're here to do. And when people can get into understanding that that is the nature of what they're to do here, they're not here to be plugged into a 9 to 5. They're not here to be kind of submitting consent, to the violations of their sovereignty and the use of their creative potential in ways. When people start waking up and understanding that and living as an artist, living as a creator, a sovereign creator, this world changes overnight. And a big mirror of that is Hollywood. And, they are the empire that has enslaved the most powerful creatives, the ones that have developed and cultivated these creative skills to pull out of the ethers, to pull, from that collective consciousness and manifest it into, films or scripts or music or whatever it is. And they are the gatekeepers now that are hijacking and have been hijacking those messages for a long time. And when you look at the infiltration of the 3-letter agencies and, how they have been intimately involved in Hollywood, from the very, very beginning, you start to really understand too just how powerful you can be as a creative, how desirable as an asset you can be as a creative. And when people start waking up to their own creative potential and looking around and realizing that these old guards, record companies, film studios, the ones that were kind of the vortex that sucked all of this creativity in, for the use of the few, they're all crumbling through, again, the use of technology. I can sit across, a room right now with you, hundreds of miles away, broadcast to thousands of people and have a voice the same as a news broadcaster can, in a studio in downtown LA. I can get together with, people that want to put together a message for a film and create those things, and that film can go viral, just like any other mainstream media, thing can. When people realize that the technology is available to the creatives right now from that same expression, and it becomes this eruption, this explosion of creativity, that's where it just blows down the doors of the old systems. It just won't handle it. It just can't handle it. And I see that actively going on right now. I try to encourage as many creatives as possible. It's a big part of who I am, is to understand people that do want to create, try to breathe life into their ideas and help support them. And I think that if we did that more and we were all on our own creation path, it's just unstoppable from what we could create collectively in service to each other, to better this experience, to have something of a higher quality of value, and that we're not turning our sovereignty over to be used, enslaved, and profited from, fed upon, all of those things.
Yeah, and going back to the Mind Scientist, Philadelphia Project, Montauk, all the MK stuff. L. Ron Hubbard was actually brought in, and it got turned into something crazy later, but he actually left because he was helping people. He got into it. I think he didn't realize what he was getting into, and then he was trying to help with the breakdown of the deprogramming and trying to pull some of this stuff out. I haven't read Kathy's book. I just got the PTSD one, but I guess Mark had gotten a lot of information about how to kind of get this out and kind of move some of these things out so we wouldn't be stuck in the programs. But that's really interesting. Now, going back to the movie, I'm sure there was so much that you couldn't put in the whole movie. That's the thing about when you do a record or a movie or anything like that. It's like figuring out what to cut out because you want everything, and then you heard so many testimonies from all these different great people who had all these experiences. Was there anything that you were surprised about? Is there any specifics that you were just whoa, or we just kind of yeah, I kind of figured, but I'm just curious from your background, and giving a little teaser to some of the people who haven't seen it, Can you
I
think of
think,
anything?
yeah, I think what is most surprising to me in that experience is, if you look at the broader movement of the Great Awakening right now, there's a lot of hyperbole. There's a lot of folklore that's wrapped up in that. There's lots of bad decodes. There's, lots of people's interpretations of things. There's lots of disinformation that slipped into them. And so, that's one thing about this community. And, it's like the discernment process for yourself and really kind of understanding. I have a feeling and relationship with information from the standpoint of it's all just information. It's I really have abandoned a lot of bold opinions these days because what I understand is I'm on a journey to not knowing where it ends, and every single moment is a surprise around those corners. So to answer your question, like, yes, there's always surprises. To me, that's what drives this experience, to uncover those things and to get deeper, because you can see the deeper stories, you see what's going on the surface levels, and the more you participate in this stuff and self-educate in communities, some of the most incredible work happens in communities and creative projects, because what the social memory complex that's built in close proximity and creative groups and collaborations and things like that, it becomes a life of its own, and it literally sucks things to it. The synchronicities are really, really interesting in those experiences. There's just a lot of power in communion and ecclesia from the standpoint of building common dialogue within each other and building collective consciousness is in small social memory groups. And so I think that, as we get into diving into these projects and whatnot, a lot of stuff does come through and is always surprising. I think for me, in relationship to this film, the surprises were really like looking at the parallels between the coup that was essentially started with Kennedy, and he was trying to basically defang the CIA at that point, and from the information that really that I uncovered here in this process, that really drove to what potentially led to his death in the long run, is his desires to get rid of these agencies that did have this autonomous power and that were working with foreign intel agencies and working with deep state factions. If anybody wants to research Project Paperclip, that's obviously a really wonderful place to start and really understand where the sciences that were worked on in Germany and brought over here, are now deeply embedded into our military industrial complex, into big pharma, into our governments. These are people and family members and bloodlines that are big part of the main world right now that we're involved in early iterations of this experimentation. And so when you get into just like those stories, there's constantly like new revelations. I think, for me, looking at, the Flynn family is a great example. Being able to, be with the Flynn family in DC there on, the date of, their General Flynn's court date, and, be with his brother, right afterwards, and connect about, what that family is going through, and, and what they mean archetypally to the world. I saw a clip of General Flynn the other day talking about how, this experience for him, he was on, essentially kind of like a life support with the American public, that the American public breathed life into him and kept him and his family going. And so like that was a real surprising thing to just kind of really get in and know that story and understand what that family has been through, and really kind of their commitment to the long-term, transformation and rooting out of this systemic corruption, and their belief in the, the document of the Constitution and what that means, and the freedoms that were provided under, under that. And so, constantly there's stuff that's, surprising, constantly stuff that's leading me down a new, rabbit hole, quote unquote. But really it's the, I wouldn't be doing this. I wouldn't be fully committed to, all of my life and resources and, creative expressions if it wasn't fulfilling on that standpoint, if this wasn't a constant journey of unlocking and finding new things and sharing those things with people publicly. That's what drives me as a creative, is to get in there and understand them and then share them, reinterpret them, put them through art. And yes, there's hours and hours of footage that don't make it. As a filmmaker, you sit and you're like, okay, I got 20 hours of footage that I have to squeeze into 90 minutes, and all of it is just like, no fat. It's amazing, from the standpoint of information that's important. And so what I did with 1,000 pieces on the cutting room floor is try to trace a story that made sense, that tied together between all of the people that were involved. And so I took their testimonies and, did the interviews, and then sat with all of them and scrubbed through all of them, and, really kind of sifted out, where does this tie together the bigger story collectively? And that's essentially what 1,000 pieces is within itself. It's the collective conversation that showed up between those individuals, around the things that they had experienced, regarding the intelligence agencies of the United States, and what has happened to them by being part of those communities, being victims of those communities, being responsible for trying to reform those communities. All of that was the bigger, broader conversation that showed up into 1,000 pieces. And Sean Stone, he's an incredible person. Yeah, he's great. And him and I had early conversations about this, and he's wanted to really kind of understand my intentions with the film, and I explained to him, these films and the reasons behind doing these films is really about taking a flag into Hollywood and taking that space back. And he really aligns with that. Being Oliver Stone's son, he's grown up deeply in Hollywood, and Oliver Stone is an amazing filmmaker from the standpoint of interpreting things through the collective consciousness. And so working with Sean was really, really great, getting into his narration and going back and forth with him, and the contributions that he was able to kind of put together from that really helped bring the story together. It was a whole collaborative participation, along with the creativity and support of our team collectively here. All of the the score was amazing. Renee Armenta, you guys can listen to the score out there now publicly. I believe it's on YouTube. You can look up Renee Armenta 1,000 Pieces score. But everything, the filmography, just the support as a co-director and producer from Steve, everybody put this together from a standpoint of just creating something together and sharing that. And I'm just honored that I got to be, the focal point to try to squeeze that all out into one little shamanic bubble there that is that film. It was a great experience. It's very honored, very, very honored.
Well, we are honored that you did this for us. You did it for you, and you did it with everybody else, and it was fun and all of that. I'm sure there were nights you were just like, oh my God, what am I doing? And it's hard work. It's really, 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 really hard work. And we appreciate you so much. And I love what you said. Well, first of all, Sean, I've had Sean on the show before, and actually he's going to be on tomorrow, and I'm sure we're going to bring you up and talk about it. For those of you who've not seen him before, we'll be talking tomorrow at 2:00. But when you talked about the communities, that is so key for you guys to really hear that and listen, because years ago when I started having memories, I got with a group of girls, and we started talking and just kind of sharing. And you're right, the synchronicities, the different things that come up. And as we dug down the rabbit hole, as it would be like, oh my God, now this one's a lie too. And oh my God, no, not that too. Please don't touch that. Please let that be real. It was just like wrecking my brain. But at the same time, there were times whenever I would get into something and it was just like, okay, I have to just I gotta take a few days to integrate, because it's like it was like pulling the floor out from everything I had been taught, and it's like everything has been a lie, all the things. And without the group community of being able to just talk out loud and talk about my feelings and share and hear what other people were going through when they did it, or they may have done it in different stages, to be like, oh yeah, I remember when that happened, and I figured that one out. Remember that? Oh, that was sucky, man. I was crying for days over that. Just to have a person, a group. And this is years ago, and here we are now, and we talk now, and we're just like, oh my God, think about the people that this is happening to now through this situation that we're in. And, we've been able to help because we did this years ago. We've had time to integrate. We've had time to, like look more into it, breathe, and maybe not be so scarred or, open wounds, but I mean, there's an opportunity for a little bit of like a depression, if you're not careful to just be, because you're just like, what is real, like, did you ever go through any of that too? I mean, where it's just like, yeah, someone's saying, watched your movie 4 times. I watched it 4 times too. And there were surprises. And also it was just, I don't know. I'll probably watch it 3 or 4 more times because, and not that it's not brand new information, but it's just like, wow. I never watch movies twice, by the way. Like I cannot watch a movie twice. Like if the kids put it on or my husband or whatever, I'm just like, saw that, please. I don't like to waste my time. But this is not a waste of time. This is something where I was like getting something else, or it would trigger something else where I was like, oh, a memory here, or this piece came in. If you guys haven't seen this, this is, anyway, but going back, did you go through any of those like, whoa, please don't touch that one, or, like that emotional stuff,
I think like that's my whole life. I think for me, I identify with being like a highly, whatever spirit got thrown into this body early on, it was definitely not prepared to be in this experience because everything felt off. And that's a representation of my life, from being a high school dropout, refusing to even just engage into the public school systems, to moving out on my own when I was 16, to being involved in the arts and the music and the subcultures, being part deeply of anarchist communities, and all of that type of stuff. I've always just felt like, out of the system, and to be out of the system. And it has been a really highly emotional experience, from the standpoint of, it's not easy to do that. It's not easy to exist outside of the system. It's almost like, antibodies, like red blood cells. It's like, you look at it as a virus within the system, and then everybody kind of, just turns on you. It's an uncomfortable topic with, families that, are wanting to stay within the system. It's all of that. But I think that that's also what's deeply a part of everyone's personal journey of actually figuring out who you are, and not who you've been told you are, or not who the systems told you that you are, not who the institutions have told that you are. And it takes a lot of courage to face those things, but it's also incredibly beautiful. And you ride the border of schizophrenia, like it feels like that. To understand and pull apart your reality from every micro specific nuance that you could possibly do and explore those things. There's a lot of dark corners out there. There's a lot of things that don't make sense. There's a lot of stuff that makes a lot of sense that didn't make sense before. And that process is an emotional roller coaster. At least it has the ability to be that. But within the same ability of being an emotional roller coaster is to being the ability to understanding your ability to not be on that emotional roller coaster. When you get through the other side and you pass through those gates of really kind of realizing that belief and truth are dependent on the perception of every individual, and every individual, you'll never know what it's like to look through their eyes, but you're looking through them right now collectively at the same time. And so that experience is very highly personal for people to understand themselves, and to really kind of get to know who they are outside of what they're afraid to say to family members, or what they're afraid to explore within themselves of who they are. And I think that's a biggest, when you go back to the talk of like what is full disclosure, or what is kind of the unveiling, that whole experience, it's that again, like, who are you? Who are you really outside of the experiences that you've been projected into and you've given consent to? Because that's really what's going on right now. And if you can get into that, the emotional roller coasters that are just ups and downs and hards, they start to level out. And the bold opinions start to kind of not have sharp edges and round off. And, the understanding of being in the flow of witnessing and participating becomes tantamount to, judgments and opinions and, holding, bold, strong, aggressive, conversations with people trying to define your reality against theirs. It's like, I just don't even see that as a place that is going to have a lot. It won't have its place here in the future. All of that, from my perspective, is going to dissolve against the background of understanding that we have the most information and the most understanding collectively, and everybody's got something to offer, whether they're a murderer, or a scientist, a Nobel Peace Prize winner. All of them have something to offer about understanding who we are, each one of us is. And if we can't fix all of us, we're sure the hell not going to be able to fix ourselves from that standpoint. And the sooner that we come to an understanding that we're responsible for ourselves and take responsibility away from the states, away from the institutions, away from religions on that standpoint, and define ourselves through our own spirituality, through our own unification of science and spirituality, through all of those things, when we can get into that place of doing that, that's where all of this stuff transforms, and the old system just breaks down. It just falls apart. And, the journey gets fun at that point. It's great to create. I work 18 hours a day. I'm constantly driven by the inspirations of my team and how they show up, and where they support. And it is fun to create with people. It's amazing to do this. And so, like what you were saying around community, it's really important right now to build community conversation and to have it. And if you look at where things are going, nobody wants you to have community conversations. Everybody wants you to have your mouth covered, don't talk, don't have mashed potatoes over Thanksgiving. Whatever you do, don't get together. And
what happens if you talk? Oh no, what happens?
Exactly. And what's going to happen, and what's going to be, a really beautiful, it's already a beautiful experience, is the ability to speak and the ability to connect again, and the ability to watch all of these systems just fall away against, again, the backdrop of what we're choosing for a new reality and a new experience. I got nothing but hope for all of us right now.
I love it. That's great. And I guess my cat does too, because she just popped up here too. So what is next for Roger Richards, and where can we find you? I'm sure you probably have 15 projects going on, right?
I definitely do. We're actively working on this Q documentary right now. We are building our own kind of social media platform, which is the orin.com. It's just in its beta phase, and we're maxed out right now, I believe, with the beta members. But our goal is to, really kind of create a place here this next year where everybody that is being censored, everybody that doesn't have the ability to speak, we're going to try to give them the place to speak. We're going to try to cultivate that conversation. We're going to try to bring, a breakaway community to the online world, and then mirror that in the real world, and understand, really what quantum living means. What does it mean to dedicate yourself to a lifestyle of quantum living, where you really understand that you're intimately in, the choreography of all things, and with everyone, and in communion with everyone. And so, we've got a lot of very, very ambitious goals. We've got wonderful support, wonderful teams, wonderful projects. And so I'm digging in for a long-term life of riding the creative train down the hill till all the wheels fall off and we all end up at home laughing together, sharing food, hanging around, talking the tales of what a crazy journey it's been.
Well, we are enjoying what you're producing, that's for sure. And I value your courage to just, whatever the background, I don't even, care. I'm glad you're the maverick who's just like, you know what, I don't need to go with the grain at all. I'm just going to do me. And that's what we all need to be doing, is everyone, why try to be like anybody else? Do you, be you, find out what makes you excited and go do that. But I'm just so thankful that you took action with these things, that you're, it's not just thoughts, but you are putting legs to it. You're putting money into it. You're investing time into it. And we get to be, we get to sit back and watch and, take the fruit of what you're doing. And it's just been pivotal. It's been a catalyst for me, your work in general. And I know from many, many, many people that, like I said, you're Above Majestic is I have it saved in my notes because every time people text me from years and years and years when it first came out, well, I'll say years and years. It seems like years and years and years. It seems like this year was a decade, but when it came out, I had, just the link, and I would just send it to any. I'm like, get it. And anytime someone's like, well, where did you begin? Okay, start right here. So you are here, and then, but with this, I have to say this latest project, what blew me away is it came out November 11th, but there was stuff from the election and after that was in the movie. I'm like, were you like finishing this up last night before? Like, I'm serious. Like, I was like going, that was yesterday. How am I watching this? And it was literally yesterday. So it's very time sensitive for, I mean, it could be forever. I mean, anyone could watch it in a decade and it would still be. But for those of you who have not seen this, I am telling you, run, do not walk. Get to wherever computer and order this up and watch it, and do it with groups, do it with family, get your kids to watch them. This is something kids can watch to understand. Teenagers, I'm not talking about like 3-year-olds, but obviously, 10, probably 12 years old and up, because this gives them kind of a structured understanding of maybe things aren't exactly, this is like a homeschool thing. It's clean, the whole family can watch it. And I mean, there are some stuff that's pretty dark, but I think that there's some things that we need to be aware of, even as teenagers and kids, that, not everything is rainbows and unicorns. And I think it would spark others, even family members, children, whatever, to actually go, you know what, I'm going to think for myself. Critical thinking is actually a rare commodity. It's getting better, but I think that you and your work has sparked a lot of giving people back their permission to think for themselves, and to dream, and to imagine, and to play, and to you're just an inspiration. I mean, you are such an inspiration to me. I'm gonna get teary-eyed. I'm just like so digging all the things that you have put out, and just we're all so thankful. And I'm excited. Did you say we can't put this on YouTube, or we can?
No, you can put this interview on YouTube.
Okay. You were just saying your movie, they wouldn't let you. Oh my gosh, all this censorship.
There are, I hear an echo really horribly right now.
Is it? Okay.
Can you hear me?
Is it better?
That's a little bit, yeah, it's still there, but it's not as blaring. Like our Twitter handle was banned within I think 6 days of having it. The censorship that creatives like me have right now, and my team and everybody in the kind of the work of doing this, you guys, you just look at it. It is absolutely driving us all to the point of abandoning these platforms. This is the mass exodus, everybody, where we've just got to get off of these platforms. And there's great platforms out there. You can look at platforms like 3Speak, which is really great. They've been an awesome, partner in supporting kind of our development of the Orin and looking at building, blockchain-based communities. There's plenty of other platforms. Parler's an interesting one that everybody's, kind of jumping on. But the idea is these spaces, the opportunity that the censorship is giving us right now is the opportunity to build a new world. We're being vibrated out of those experiences, vibrated out of those systems. We don't belong there anymore. They don't belong with us. There's no home for us there, so it's better for us to go make those homes, somewhere else. That's a lot what we're doing with the Orin, from that standpoint, and the development into the next year is to give people, a place to do that, and create that breakaway society that doesn't have to participate, and we can continually bring people to, that space to honor the celebration of, free speech and, free creativity, boundless creativity. Adrienne Youngblood, who's a partner of mine, she always references the idea of the celebration of human brilliance, which I think really kind of resonates, deeply within me, as far as what we're doing collectively here. And so just to kind of, touch on a few things. Yes, the film was literally being made like right up to the point it was being released. It was part of the intensity of that film. It had it had a nature in itself that drove itself to be produced as it went. We did release an iteration of the film on the 3rd, which was like a free, community screening that went through the Orin and people that were a part of the Orin beta phase there. And then we did a retool, as we were in that process before we released it to, Vimeo. And right now we're in the process of trying to get into the mainstream retailers. We'll see if we get banned from them too. But the goal is for us to just kind of continue to pump this stuff out, to continue to provide the experiences that people are wanting to understand and explore, and be fearless against the censorship, be righteous against the power and the inspiration that comes to experiencing these things. And we're an unstoppable force, and I mean that from the standpoint of this community, not just me, my team, and all of that. And the praise that you give me is great. It feels supportive from the work that I do, but I'd be nothing without the people around me and the supports around me. I sit on the shoulders of giants from the standpoint of everybody that we collectively, work with and collaborate with. I could not do anything, to what I'm doing, what I would like to be doing without them. So I have a great admiration for my team, great admiration for the community that I've been a part of for years. Just so much love for this whole experience, and I just hope that anybody kind of hearing this, that watches my films, that watches the work of what we've done collectively, can feel the power of the inspiration that is there, that lives inside those things, and let that spark an ember in you to go find something that feels inspiring to you. Are you holding back a book that you wanted to write? Do you have a concept in like a recipe that you want to create? Do you have an architectural design that is just driving you crazy that you have to get out? Everybody is here to contribute and create, and I just hope that the messages of these films right now and the work that we do creatively shows that there's nothing to be scared of. We just have to create those spaces. We're vibrating out of the old ways and we're creating our new home.
I love your heart. Oh my God. Big heart. Look at you. I love it.
It just comes.
Yes. Big hug. Everyone, ginormous hug here. I love it. The way you speak is just so poetic. The way anyway. So everybody go get out there and watch this movie. Tell your friends about it. Share this video. Tag people. Do whatever you need to do to get the word out, because we can actually create a movement with just a few people. Like, it doesn't take everybody. It would be great if everybody did it. And also, all of the big wars that happened were just a group of people that got together and actually had a tipping point, and we moved things out. So truth and being informed and educated is huge, and being able to actually do stuff. And so I just really cannot stress enough how important it is to get out there and watch this and share it and support guys like this who are doing it. And thank you so much again, Roger. I hope to connect with you again, and on your future projects. I would love to be able to get any previews or whatever beta stuff you got going on. I'm like fangirl forever over here, and anything I can do to help too, Awesome. And all you guys send good vibes to all their projects and what they're doing, and just like he said, go out and do your thing too. We need all of you, and you all have a piece, and we appreciate your piece. We appreciate your love, your prayers, and everything that you're doing. So have an awesome night, you guys. We went a little over, but it was so worth every bit of it. And thank you again, Roger.
You got it.
Bless you
so much.
Thank you, everybody. We'll talk soon. All right. Bye-bye.